Hey, everybody. Welcome to Animal Communications from Coast to Coast. I'm Mary Beth, and I'm representing the East Coast. I'm out here in North Carolina, and I'm an animal communicator, body worker, and physio. My passion is really just connecting people and their animals, and I really believe that magic can happen when two souls align. And I'm here with my one of my great friends, Denise.
Hi there, I'm Denise Dunleavy. I'm also an animal communicator and intuitive. I'm a teacher as well, teaching animal communication, and I like to help people develop a better understanding of their animals uh, by interpreting messages and giving intuitive guidance. And I think this can just make life so much easier and more joyful when we can understand each other better. And I am on the West Coast in Portland, Oregon, and we love connecting people from far away because that's how we met. We actually haven't met in person. So we became friends during COVID, just meeting online, doing groups, and it brought us together. So we know there's people out there that we have messages for.
I love it. I love it. And I love that in this day and age that we're able to connect with each other. Like you said, we haven't met and we're still able to connect in one space. And it shows just the power of just not only the internet, but just the power of where your heart is. And I think it highlights what we were talking about, what you mentioned, is just connecting each other and connecting their animals. So it's powerful. We don't have to be next door to each other. One day we will meet. I've seen some beautiful pictures of Oregon, but for right
Beautiful
now,
place.
for right now, I'm in the east and we've got Denise in the west. So how are you doing, Denise?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about symbols from our pets today and give some examples from readings that we've done.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I was listening to our talk from last week, and it really got me thinking more and more about symbols. And that was kind of one of the first things that I learned when I started understanding these gifts. For example, it was one of the first classes I was in. It's actually not a reading I had given, but it's a reading I had received. I had a Cocker Spaniel who had transitioned before we had adopted our new Cocker Spaniel. The Cocker Spaniels looked very similar, but the Cocker Spaniel who had transitioned was my heart and soul. And I really missed him and I wanted to connect with him. So, in a class, and I actually heard him tell me before he left that I would be adopting a dog that looked very similar to him. So, here comes my dog that I have now. Anyways, in a class, we were practicing, and the one lady who was giving me the reading was from the UK. And she just looked at me. She's like, I can't be right on this. She's like, I keep seeing tea, and we always eat biscuits with our tea. She's like, I don't know what the biscuit has to do with anything, but there's something about biscuit. Would you believe the dog's name that I adopted is Biscuit? So I had to laugh and I told her, I was like, no, my dog's name is Biscuit. That's why my dog transition Jack would be showing you the biscuit. So it's interesting how literal it can be.
Absolutely. It can be literal or it can be figurative. And so our job as an animal communicator is to help interpret these messages or translate them. I have a couple examples. One, I was seeing broccoli. And I thought that seemed really strange. And they said, oh, our dog likes to eat broccoli. Like that's a special trait for him. So that was very literal and very easy to figure out. I just did a reading this week where I was seeing an alligator. And to me, it looked like a Halloween costume. I thought it was a Halloween costume on a dog because I could kind of see the tail wagging. And so I thought, well, maybe the alligator means something to the person, or they have a stuffed animal that's an alligator or something like that. But that wasn't the case. So I looked up the spiritual meaning of an alligator. And what came through was it means just breathe. Take a
Mm.
step back, take time to breathe and relax. And it turned out that the person who I was doing the reading for was actually in the hospital. And so she had hired me to talk to her dog and tell him that she was coming home, explain where she was because it had come up suddenly. So I thought that's the message is just relax, just be where you are and heal. And so that's what she needed to hear. So there can be a few different meanings of things that come through, and we can help walk people through it and figure out and translate what this is meaning from the pet.
So true. Oh, what a beautiful message, and how powerful it is for that caregiver. Yeah, it's true, because sometimes we get these symbols and it takes me a moment, or it takes us a moment to kind of understand where they're coming from. I had the privilege of connecting with a beautiful horse who she was a mare, and she was kind of traditional mare, is that they have some moodiness. Um and but she kept showing me this picture of Betty Boop. And like when I first connected with her, and I was like, Betty Boop is just this carefree little, dancer and everything like that. And it came to realize that that was actually her nickname. I was like, I told the caregiver, it's like, I keep seeing Betty Boop. That was her nickname. And so it didn't really have to do with the horse's personality. It was just more that's just what they call him. And another way, recently, I connected with this beautiful little poodle, and she was such a princess. She is such a princess, and it was funny because I saw a crown and I heard princess. And what was so funny is the caregiver put her on the video that we were talking to. What was on her shirt? She literally had the crown and the princess on her little dress. And so it was just kind of funny, the validations that they give us through symbols too, because I think that really does help the caregiver, to know that we're connecting with us, and it helps, us to, like I said, give us either some validations or some messages. One other kind of example I wanted to talk about, kind of because how you mentioned, is understanding the message. Sometimes the similar animals will give us, or sometimes two animals will give us similar messages or symbols, and we have to figure out what they mean. Like one thing that I look at is I do a body scan. Sometimes I'll see them kind of moving their mouth, and sometimes I won't. I had two different dogs who were kind of drew me to their mouth. One dog, it was because they were a little bit of a loudmouth. They were very mouthy and had a lot to say, although they weren't physically talking, but they were just kind of using their mouth. And another dog, I was very drawn to their mouth, and it was more teeth related. So, animals can use similar symbols to mean different things. That's my experience.
I love when you get those zingers, like seeing Betty Boop. There's something magical about when you know you're getting this message. One time I was talking to a dog who showed me tap shoes. And I said, I'm getting something about tap dancing. And they said, oh, he does this tap dance where his feet go up and down, and it goes click, 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 click. And so you know that you're connecting, right? You just get that feeling of, I'm really getting the message from the pet. I have another example of how animals will communicate in a way that makes sense to the reader, to us as the animal communicator. And it's kind of like they're reading our energy too, to know what symbols will mean for us. And when I teach my classes, I always use the example of an airplane, because for most people, an airplane represents travel.
Mhm.
But for some people, if they're afraid of flying, even just the image or thinking about an airplane can give them so much fear that that's all they can focus on. So for that person, if an animal is showing them an airplane, it is probably afraid of something. It's giving them that message. For someone else, they might be talking about a trip that their person is going on or something that's coming up. So that is another way that they can use symbols that is meaningful to the reader. And so as an animal communicator, we are constantly trying to figure out the messages, interpret that. And also sometimes it's just telling the person what you get. I can just tell the human, I'm seeing an airplane. And sometimes that just makes more sense to them than it does to me.
Oh my gosh, so true, so true. So a couple of things. First of all, thank you for highlighting that important fact about the airplane, because I want to remind people this is communication. This isn't some parlor trick. This isn't some, just reading energy. There is a lot of reading about energy, but there is a two-way communication. And very often through, and well, no, not very often, always three-way communication, because it's us, the animal, and the caregiver. And so it's really beautiful to see the animals taking part and trying to kind of figure out ways, to use symbols that we could understand as well as our caregivers to understand. So again, I think it's a beautiful highlight that just the communicative part about this whole thing. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, it's so true that we sometimes get it wrong, what, because we are relying on what means something to us. I used to be terrified of flying, so I relate very much to your example. And so I've done that similar. I had a red truck, and literally, this horse was talking about a red truck, and I had to tell the caregiver, no, I don't know what this means. I just see a red truck. And kind of then we get into figuring out what it means. But I
Mhm.
think it also talks a little bit about what we talked about last week, is that I think that's also why we get information from a couple of different sources or a couple of different ways, feeling, seeing, and just trying to kind of understand, so that if it's just simply pictures, it's a lot harder to get it, it's not quite as easy to get it right. But if we're able to kind of use the other senses and the other information, and why this becomes such an important thing to practice for people who are wanting to get into animal communication, is you can't just rely on what's one avenue of information. It's a practice where you kind of learn to integrate everything. So,
Yep, and it can be like a game of charades.
oh yes.
Sometimes you're getting pieces and you're going back and forth and trying to figure it out. I've had times where I start a reading and I think they're saying one thing, and by the end I'm like, oh, this is what they meant. So my readings are very stream of consciousness. I will just be talking and saying I'm getting all of this information, and sometimes we don't know exactly what it means until the end.
So true, so true. And I think that's a great topic that we can dive into next week, about kind of how we decipher the information, and kind of different ways that they give us the information in our processes, and kind of diving into how this how a session would work. But in the meantime, if you guys want to get in touch with either Denise or I and experience what your animal has to say, or curious kind of what symbols they will use. I don't know exactly what my dog would say to you, Denise, but I would be curious what symbols they would use. Please feel free to get in touch with us. I'm posting our information below, but you can find me at magicallyaligned.com or magicallyaligned@gmail.com. And Denise?
And I am at intuitivedenise.com. And also my handle on Instagram and Facebook is at intuitivedenise. So we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, yes. Please feel free. Like I said, I'm posting that information below, and looking forward to next week. Please post any comments or questions you have too. Have a great day.
All right, thanks.